You're watching Reality Check. Tonight we drill deeper into the expanding scandal triggered by the collapse of the Amrapali real estate group, accused of siphoning off crores of wealth from home buyers. Its chairman and managing director of the company, as well as the top officials, are under fire of the Amrapali group. But the firestorm has spread wider. It's engulfed the top US-based investment bank JP Morgan, and it has also, unfortunately, singed India's iconic cricket legend, MS Dhoni, who was brand ambassador for the company. Now, both of them, JP Morgan and MS Dhoni, have been named in the auditor's report to the Supreme Court as having played a role in the siphoning off of the fund of home buyers. The court order coming after the company, like so many others in Delhi's national capital region, failed to keep its commitments, leaving close to 40,000 buyers stranded. The court found on the basis of this audit that Amrapali had diverted 5,600 crores of home buyers' wealth into 47 companies, of which nearly half, 27, were labelled as dubious. Now, the court order found that JP Morgan was involved in some of these dubious transactions with some of these companies. The court found that in 2010, JP Morgan invested 85 crores into a company called Amrapali Zodiac Developer Limited. 3 years later, the order says, JP Morgan sold its shares to two other Amrapali companies, Neelkant Buildcraft and Rudraksha Infocity, who paid it almost double, 140 crores. Of that 140 crore windfall, JP Morgan invested 60 crores in another Amrapali project, Amrapali Leisure Valley. The problem with all this? Neelkant Buildcraft had a capital of only rupees 1 lakh. Chandan Kumar, one of its directors, is supposed to be an office boy in the offices of the auditors of the Amrapali group of companies. The order says the other director, Vivek Mittal, is the nephew of the Amrapali auditor, Anil Mittal. Neelkant paid JP Morgan via Rudraksha, which the order says also consists of the office boys and relatives of Anil Mittal, and was not in a financial position to make such a large payment. So essentially, these two suspect companies are paying 140 crores to JP Morgan. Now, the response by the JP Morgan group, we sent them a detailed questionnaire. This is all they were prepared to say at this stage. We are aware of the reports about the Supreme Court findings. JP Morgan hasn't received any notice from the court, nor have been asked to provide any information. Let's first look at the questions that have come up about MS Dhoni. Let's first look at those questions before we get to the response that Dhoni's sports firm has given us. Let's first look at what are the questions that have arisen over Dhoni's sports firms. And let's take those one by one, because that again is a big question that has come up in all of this, the role of MS Dhoni. Let's put that up on the screen and let's look at that to see what are the questions that have come up about Dhoni's companies. Now, one of the questions that has come up is that Sakshi Dhoni holds 25% stake in a company called Amrapali Mahi Developers. Now, this is a company in which the Amrapali chief is also a stakeholder. And according to the Supreme Court, this particular company is also being probed for diverting funds. So these are some of the questions coming up. More questions surrounding MS Dhoni is that about the fact that whether payments that were made to him as a brand ambassador, that the auditors have said are questionable. This is the response from Dhoni's sports firm, which is the Riti Group. And Arun Pandey says that observations in the forensic report are bereft of proper information. The question of siphoning funds does not arise. He says we have claims of approximately 40 crore rupees against the Amrapali Group. We're trying to get money from Amrapali Group, not siphoning money away from them. And they said they cooperated entirely during the forensic audit. So, as we said, the fire from this particular scandal spreading and singeing JP Morgan, singeing those like MS Dhoni. But what does it all mean to those who've lost their money? Are they going to be able to get it back? And is there going to be concrete action? Joining us tonight on the show, we have Sharbir Panag with us, a lawyer, someone who is particularly focused on financial crimes. Bhaskar Ghosh, BJP leader, is in the studio with us. Mr. M.L. Lahoti, senior advocate who's representing the home buyers, also is joining us on the show, and also Bahadur Abbas, director, Ace Infracon Private Limited, a builder based in this region, is with us. So, can I just ask you, Sharbir Panag, that when you look at some of the modus operandi that the forensic audit has revealed as to how the money was quote unquote siphoned off, you even see the role of a company, allegedly of a company like JP Morgan. What do you make of it? Is this a classic modus operandi that we're seeing in a number of these similar scandals?
Well, I think what we need to look at this as is in a few prisms. I think prism one is whether or not JP Morgan knowingly was aware of what was happening, whether there were questionable elements of the underlying documents to these transactions, which is typically where the issues arise, whether the related party transactions were known. But on this point, Srinivasan, I think I'm also a little baffled that a bank of their stature would miss the directors, the principal promoters of the companies who were purchasing shares, purchasing investments that they had. The paid up capital per se doesn't concern me as much as where the funds were coming from, where these balance sheets were. Definitely very sketchy. Would we call this as a market practice? I would honestly hope not. I would hope this is an anomaly for an institution of their size.
Yes.
But what we are seeing at Amrapali is sort of Indian corporate governance at its very worst, and unfortunately, that is a prevalent norm for similarly placed companies, especially in the real estate sector.
Right. Because as you were saying, I mean, even if the share capital is not very high, where's the money coming from, given the fact that you have the director of this company, one of the directors is supposed to be an office boy who works in the auditor's office, the auditor of Amrapali, the other director is the nephew. Yeah. Both these companies are made up of office boys and relatives, and they are then, paying 140 crores. That's quite surprising, as you said, particularly when we're talking of a big international investment firm. But Mr. Lahoti, now you've been fighting for these home buyers. Do you feel now that with all this coming out, is this the tip of the iceberg? Or are there more big names? Are they, is there more of a scandal that is still to see the light?
It's a rare case where all kind of scandals, manipulations are involved. Supreme Court in the judgment, which runs to more than 270 pages, have analyzed in much more details as to each of the instances of the fraud, naked fraud committed by, or the collusion and connivance also of the banks, JP Morgan, the International Investment Company, and Noida and Greater Noida authorities. And in the clearest terms, the Supreme Court had said, but for this connivance, probably this kind of 11,000 crores scandal would not have happened. And so far as the authorities are concerned, the court had said they had merely paid 10% against the lease date some 10 years back, and thereafter neither of the 90% installment was paid, nor any action was taken by Noida, Greater Noida authorities, though under the lease deed and under the act they were provided to cancel. If they have cancelled in the time all these leases which Supreme Court had done the other day, probably this catastrophe would not have happened.
So who do you blame for that?
The court had said, in spite of the RBI's master circular, why?
Who do you blame for that?
Of course.
Who? Who is responsible?
No, naturally, it is all the three are responsible. First, these government agencies, Noida and Greater Noida authority, when they had the authority, why they had not cancelled the lease deed? Number one. Why the banks had not followed the master circular of the RBI and went on giving hundreds of crores without seeing the end dues, and they were not watching or keeping a what is called the vigilance as to in the morning if 280 crores is released, by evening 5 o'clock that was used for the luxuries or the benefit of the personal families.
So you're saying why did these authorities
Anil Sharma.
Right. Why did these authorities not cancel the lease? I want to come to that point. I want to come to that point in a second.
First,
But Mr. Lahoti, allow me
Right.
just to ask you one question. One question which has been troubling me, because I think for all of us who are both, we are passionate about Indian cricket, and obviously we have huge respect for Mahendra Singh Dhoni. He was a brand ambassador for Amrapali, but he says he was himself gypped by this company. He's trying to get 40 crores from them. But then there are also these details coming out about the fact that, there were payments made to his company which the auditors say were not kosher. Now, one of these companies, it turns out his wife was a partner with the promoter of Amrapali. How do you read it, Mr. Lahoti? I mean, in the wider scheme of things, is this just a very small part of the overall scandal? It's just because he's a prominent personality, it's getting this attention.
Well, apart from the fact that Mahendra Singh Dhoni is a important personality, there is not much involved in this, because remember, Mahendra Singh Dhoni had himself filed an application in the Supreme Court that out of 42 crores, that brand ambassadors agreement, he had received only 6 crore. So this Amrapali companies owe to him the entire remaining amount. That petition was not argued nor considered by the Supreme Court. But the forensic auditors had come very strongly against the wife of Mahendra Singh Dhoni and the company also, and they had said in so many words that there was no cooperation from the persons of that company or Mahendra Singh Dhoni or his wife Sakshi Dhoni, number one. And the observation which are made very clearly by the forensic auditors are, number one, that all cash transaction was there. Shares were sold to Dhoni or Dhoni's wife on the company in cash. Expenses were shown on the cash. And so far as the agreement is concerned of the brand ambassador, it was on a plain paper. There was no authority, and who had paid him, who had signed it. All those questions are there.
They have raised some questions,
but the most important part is they had not cooperated with the two forensic auditors, and there are no documents.
Okay, but you're saying this is still a very small part of it, and of course we've also put up the response from Dhoni's firm saying that the forensic report doesn't have the proper information. But I just want to ask you, Mr. Bhaskar Ghosh, because the fact is that, look, I mean, it's very good that the courts have stepped in. They're taking punitive action against Amrapali, including many of these other builders. But as we've just heard there from Mr. Lahoti, what were the authorities doing? How were they allowing these companies to function? Why were their leases not being cancelled? Somewhere along the line, did the government also not crack down enough?
Srinivasan Jain, let me tell you one thing here, that whatever I am seeing the consequences of entire episodes, that's a quid pro quo between the bank, between the Noida development authorities and of course the builder. There are n number of irregularities, violating FEMA, violating FERA, everything is involved. All kind of masalas are involved into these episodes, right?
But how is this being allowed to
I'll be coming.
It is, after all, your government in both in New Delhi and
let me answer you point blank. Do you remember there is 2016 we have passed Real Estate Regulation and Development Act?
Yes.
It is not we passed. We have taken initiative to enact the law, the bill, which was tabled up in 2013 in the UPA2 by the Giriraj Vyas, who was then the Minister
so
of
even
Housing.
if you assuming that you passed RERA,
this is
assuming you passed RERA, but this is just
I'm
outright
coming back
corruption.
to the point.
This is outright
now who is the government authority here? The government authority is the Noida Development Authority, where we have no control until we came to the power in UP. They are not in our control. We came to the power of UP, and we are the companies who are unearthing one after another cases of entire Greater Noida and Noida. Amrapali is just, I mean, tell you, it's a drop in the ocean. There are several companies who has done it. In our era, in our Yogi Ji's era, we are unearthing the entire connivance between the Noida Development Authority.
But he's saying that the authorities are not cancelling the leases of these companies.
So
the
what
companies
is happening?
are functioning.
What is happening?
It is
here?
only because of the
Supreme
Court.
We have cancelled.
It is because of the Supreme Court
we are
that it has
taking
come.
case by case, and we are cancelling it. Number one.
Okay,
Number two, today Supreme Court has given an order with reference to our Real Estate Regulation Act,
Yeah.
and today whatever is the grievances being accepted in the court,
Right.
and the relief has been given
Yeah.
with respect to the law which was tabled up, which the bill was prepared in 2013,
Yeah.
but this last government has got no intention to prove it.
No, but
they
when
have
you say
allowed
last
because
government, the order
Mayawati-
says
because
the
BSP
judgment says authorities acted in collusion with the builders.
Yes, and
so
what
these are
time?
authorities.
What time? What is
These
the
are
tenure?
authorities. This is
Not
the entire
before-
time.
Not before we came to the power in UP. There was a power who was in power, you know better, and who was in power in center, you know better. And
Okay,
that is
can
the
I ask-
way
can I
the
ask Mr.
alliance
Lahoti?
was connived. The alliance was connived, and they were looting this country's money.
Mr.
through
Lahoti,
only
is this
handful of builders, and he is one of them.
Is this, Mr. Lahoti, is this correct to say that it was only the corruption was there earlier with the officials?
We have
and now
unearthed.
suddenly
Let
it is
Mr.
cleared
Lahoti
up?
says we have unearthed. It is
Or,
the present government
or
which
were
has
the
unearthed.
authorities continuing to
I
turn a
can
blind
give a
eye?
day-by-day anecdotes
Till
about
What do
the-
you expect from a politician?
Yes. Mr. Lahoti.
Can I interject?
Yes, Mr. Lahoti.
What do you expect from a politician? This drama is going on for last so many years. For at least 10 years this is going on, whether
We are not there in
Mulayam
10 years.
Singh,
Once again,
Mayawati
once again,
government,
let him
Congress
respond.
government, BJP government. If they had taken timely action,
Where we are there in
Yes,
last
please.
10 years, Mr. Lauti.
can I?
No, no, let him respond. Let him respond. Yes.
What
I'm
I am
correcting.
submitting,
Yes, Mr.
what
Lahoti.
I am, yes, you have the authority. It's a fact. I am pleading for 48,000 home buyers who are struggling for last more than 10 years. Why they have to struggle? The ministers and others are coming of the BJP government, earlier government. They are giving the assurance. "Hum aapke
Sir,
saath
last
Once again, let him
years we are
speak.
not in
Let
But
him
I don't know
speak.
what it means.
Let him
Why
speak.
they are not seeing? Where were the CEO of the Noida authorities and the concerned minister? And today also, Attorney General have to appear in the Supreme Court on Monday.
We are the
in
first
other
again,
case,
once again.
Unitake case, and then in JP
Allow me
case,
to correct
JP, Unitake, Amrapali, Raheja, all have one issue, that home buyers have taken for a ride
Yeah.
by authorities, by politicians, and by builders.
Mr.
Right.
Lauti,
And
we are the
finally,
first. We are the
Supreme
first.
Court comes to their rescue.
We
Okay.
are the
Supreme
first
Court
government who has
passed
put
the
the all
strongest
senior
order.
executive who is
And-
But he's
and
the
doing
lawyer.
this
Don't
malpractice
say you are-
behind the
But he's
behind
the
the
lawyer.
bar.
But
No.
he knows
Behind the
better.
bar, the
But
chief
does he?
engineer.
No.
But he knows
The chief
better. He's
engineer
the
we have
lawyer
put
of
behind the bar.
You
He's
may
the lawyer
say
of the
anything.
home buyers. He's
You-
saying all
you may
politicians
say
are involved.
Let
anything,
him go by.
anything
He
by
knows
the
better
record.
or
on
not.
television.
You
Let
have to
him go by
respect
the
him.
records. I am presenting
Yes,
my
yes.
records in front of you. The
Okay,
date wise.
let me
I am
ask-
saying,
let me ask-
I am saying on the live,
Yeah.
I am saying in the program of
Yes.
Srinivasan Jain
Yes.
with all sense of responsibility
Yes.
that all political parties, none of them have taken action
Yes.
against builders,
Yes.
against their own authorities,
Yes.
against the banks. Why? Whether it was central government, I'm not bothered whether it is BJP, Congress, I'm not a
Okay,
politician.
you're saying
But
all.
this is the naked truth. Why 48,000 person only of
Obviously,
Amrapali?
Okay,
he is
he's
suppo-
saying,
and
he-
he's saying all
32,000
parties. Okay, he's saying all
He is
parties.
protecting the interest of- that's all parties. He's a journalist.
He's saying all parties. Okay, okay. Can I ask
I'm
you?
saying all parties who were
Right.
in the power, number one. Number
Okay.
one. And do you know how many thousands of crores of rupees
Yes.
had gone for a ride by this
Sharbir.
Anil Sharma
Yeah.
and others? Why? If there was some surveillance, some responsibility,
Yeah.
it would never have happened.
Right.
I had asked this question directly on one of the television channel a few months back to the CEO of Noida Authority. Where were you? Why
Yeah.
you were not cancelled the leases? If
Right.
the leases were cancelled, probably this day we not. We
Okay.
have to argue for 56 days
Right.
in Supreme Court to
Right.
get this order of 270
Right,
days.
but okay, Bahadur Abbas.
And it is a total naked lie if any politician or any political party
Yeah.
says this.
Okay.
No,
Can
but-
I ask?
but
Can
one
I ask
point
Bahadur
I-
Abbas?
one
Can I
point
ask
I want
Bahadur
to make
Abbas?
it,
Once
the
again,
lease
let the
was-
others also speak.
Okay, okay.
Bahadur Abbas,
And-
why is it that we find
and-
that here
And-
in
and
this
Mr.
NCR
Srinivasan,
region
the
particularly,
same is the
there
story
is
of
such a problem?
of the central government
Why
of
is
RBI.
it in these
Why RBI?
particular
Why
areas?
RBI
Just a
has
second,
not
Mr.
taken
Lawti.
action?
Why here is it the worst?
See, as a builder, let me explain you one thing. Whenever we are taking any land from the authority, there
Yes.
is in the lease deed, there is a clause, if there is any violation of the lease deed, it will be immediately cancelled.
Yes.
But what is happening?
Yes.
The authority and the government is in collusion and they are not cancelling the lease. This is the basic problem. Do
No,
suppose,
but now,
do
okay,
suppose.
now you're
See,
blaming.
let me
I'm saying,
explain.
can I ask you?
What-
I'm asking for the builder. I'm saying you're a builder.
Yes.
Would you not admit that the builders in the NCR particularly have the worst reputation? Okay, you may say that the authorities may be in collusion with them.
Yes.
No,
But
no,
why
Mr.
are
Jain,
they?
here's a
Why are
technical
they?
point, technical
One
point.
second, one second. No, no, let him respond. He's finally getting a chance to speak. Why here particularly is there this culture of scamming the homeowners? It is much worse in the NCR. Yes, it is there in other parts of the country, but why is it so
I will
much
add
worse
up one
here?
more question. Please allow me to add up one more question.
See, what-
If he says that
Now
by
we have
not
many anchors of the show.
once again, no, I'm just one question to the builders. If they are not paying the dues which is supposed to pay in time, whatever it is, the lease is automatically void ab initio. So why they are continuing?
No,
Not
no,
at all,
I'm
not
just
at all,
saying,
not at all.
why are the homeowners of NCR being scammed more than any other part of this country?
Because the reason is this, in Noida what is happening, mainly in Noida and Gurgaon what is
Yes.
happening, the demand is so high and the authorities are ready to
Bombay demand is very high.
accept whatever you are offering, or there is a special
Corruption,
rate.
corruption.
Yes, there is a special rate. If you are ready to pay, then
corruption.
you can do whatever you want.
These are, I mean,
even
that's what I'm
today,
saying.
even today,
no
even
political
today,
party
again,
can
even
claim
today,
immunity, sir.
even
These
today,
are your
let me tell
government
you
in
one thing.
Haryana, this is your
Even
government in
Noida,
Uttar
Noida
Pradesh.
today sells at 3 to 3,500 per square feet.
Even today,
But
government
Okay,
in
wants to
Sharmil,
take
Bombay,
action.
you are
Okay,
selling
okay,
at
okay.
1 lakh
Even
rupees
today.
per square
Okay,
feet. But there
Sharmil
is no
Panag wants to come in.
corruption.
One
Even
second, one
today-
second.
Look,
Ek second.
this
Sharmil
has
Panag.
none
Sharmil
of this
Panag.
has anything to do with demand.
Yes, Sharmil, go ahead.
I think we are sort of being short-sighted if we are linking this to demand. There is a fundamental there is a nexus with most of the builders. When these issues happen, it's not, the home buyer is one victim, the banks, the authorities, several people become victims. It's
Yes.
valuation reports that get forged, it's these accommodation entries that take place. It's chartered accountants giving false end-use certificates. There's a whole nexus to this. It's not
Yeah.
isolated to just an authority cancelling a lease.
Right.
But what we need to look at is that we cannot keep relying upon the apex court of the country to resolve issues. We do not have to have a scenario where so many thousands of home buyers need to come
Yes,
together.
I agree.
Several authorities at initial stages need to act. Our courts need to act faster. Law enforcement authorities need to act faster. These complaints have been coming in for time. If
Right.
the stress was looked into at an appropriate period of time,
Right.
like Mr. Lahoti said, we wouldn't be looking at it.
Okay.
And I think even when the new UP government is looking at reforms, the reforms have to be to speeden up the process.
Right.
Otherwise, today it's going to be Amrapali, tomorrow it's going to be somebody else. The
Yeah,
nexus
there
is
are
going
many
to continue.
Amrapalis.
The fundamental ecosystem around this is going to continue.
Right.
Why?
There
why
are
did
many
the-
Amrapalis,
why did we
but if
have
I
to
can
have
just
a
ask-
Supreme Court cancel ARERA registration. I think at
Right.
some point of time we need to take stock and say,
Fair enough.
Is
Can
this,
I just-
is this the Supreme Court's job when we have so many other authorities that have
Right.
been
Let me
created to
just
look into this?
okay. Let me just get last word in from Mr. Lahoti. Mr. Lahoti, as far as now, at least Amrapali is concerned, what exactly is the position? Because now the national sort of the housing authority, one of the government housing authorities, they have been entrusted now to try to liquidate whatever assets, raise some money and try and build the homes. Is that working out, or is there a problem there?
No, there are a lot of problems, Srinivasan, there. The first problem is the money. NBCC chairman, earlier chairman, appeared in the court and he said, yes, we will build the houses, but give us the money. All the money have been siphoned off, okay, by the luxury investment of this Anil Sharma and others. Today,
Anil Sharma
until
being
unless
the
the properties are sold
head.
and
Yeah.
the money is recovered, which is more than 4 to 5,000 crore,
Right.
how NBCC will build?
Right.
And you know how much units are to be built? It is more than 32,000 units which need to be constructed.
Right.
And according to NBCC, they need more than 7,800 crores.
Right.
And if until unless you sell or auction the properties of these all directors, their luxury yachts their Goa properties, their other,
All that,
properties
all that.
here and
Okay,
there,
okay.
in Maharani Bagh in Delhi.
Until
Where
then
from
we
you
can't.
recover the
Okay,
money?
we're out of time.
And number one, and
We're out
till
of
the
time.
money is there,
Yeah.
I doubt,
Yeah.
I doubt how NBCC will do it.
Okay, so we're in a kind of
the only
Kingfisher-like
way it can be
situation.
do is,
Yeah.
we had requested the central government, we had requested in Attorney General that central government must give some
Okay.
fund. These are the citizens
Okay,
of
well-
India.
well, hopefully
And
the central government
had
will-
equal responsibility. Why
Okay,
they are
we
not
hope the
investing
central government takes
when
note.
the Modi government
We
is
hope-
saying,
We hope the central government will
when the
take
Modi government
note.
or any government is saying housing is our priority,
Right, right. We'll hope the central government takes note. We're out of time, but it's challenging because liquidating assets to try and create money, as we've learned from the Kingfisher example, is not easy. But thank you so much, all of you, for joining us on Reality Check. We're completely out of time. Thanks for watching. Good night.